Hi everyone, I'm Daddy Luna, and you can find me on Instagram at daddyluna_ or on TikTok. I am Daddy Luna, and of course here on YouTube, Daddy Luna. The topic of today, it's really powerful because chances are that you don't know whether you are an emotional dictator or an emotional manager. And you might think, I'm an emotional manager. Of course, this is a spectrum. Chances are, I will dare to predict that a lot of you, just like me, have gone through very long phases in life where you've been an emotional dictator. And you might be an emotional dictator right now. So let's find out. Let's get started. Okay, so whatever you're going through life right now, even if life feels very comfortable, there must be an area in your life where you are experiencing a challenge or something that is not really working out the way you wanted it to work out, or some sort of struggle, stuckness. Like, this is really not moving forward. This is not progressing. I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know where to start. It's too big. It's too overwhelming. We are all at any given moment experiencing all of these things because this is what life uses in order to help us evolve and grow. It gives us that edge of rejection, feeling like, I don't want this in my life, in order for us to really see ourselves reflected in the situation. Now, what does this have to do with being an emotional dictator? Notice that when we don't know how to manage our emotions, and by manage our emotions, what do I mean? I mean that we're able to recognize them, that we're able to expand broaden our ability to own them. We're able to see that they are giving us a idea, a gift, a guidance towards where we want to go, and that we're open to feel them publicly in front of people, meaning we're open to be vulnerable at the idea that we all feeling all range of emotions and that they are very important for our life well-being. That's what I mean by processing emotions. A lot of us, because we've grown in an insecure attachment style, whether that was anxiety or avoidance, right? We don't necessarily know how to process our emotions because it wasn't modeled to us, and in many cases, because we weren't allowed to. Notice that when we get into this world as a baby, or even as a, embryo in our mother's womb, we are not having any other ability to communicate and interrelate ourselves with our environment, that it's not an emotion. Have you noticed that? It's all emotionally based. So in order for me to, communicate that I was hungry, or to communicate that I needed some warmth, or to communicate that I was feeling scared, or that I needed safety, all of us as human beings need so many years of emotional communication before we are able to grasp other means to communicate with our caregivers. And a lot of us, because we're coming from a big chain, a long chain of our parents, our caregivers not knowing how to do that, we also don't know how to do that. But we think that we don't need to do that. Because if I rely on this world, on this physical world, meaning if I have enough money, if I have a good job, if I have everything, a whole business, if I can trust in my ability to go strong through this life, right, then I don't need the emotional part. That is the over reliance that we have in this physical world, where we are ignoring that it is through our emotions that we understand what's our next level of well-being maturity and emotional intelligence maturity. What's emotional intelligence and why do we need that? Well, it is the ability to be as much integrated into the emotion and the practical life as possible. So what we're really looking for is a life where our creativity and our potential can flow. And that can only happen when we integrate the two forces, right? The structure, the systems, the masculine, and also the emotional, the intuition, the abstract, the feelings, the energy. When we can integrate those two, right, that means we are in a better alignment because we are open for those energies to work in our life. And then we feel in that alignment that we can express ourselves much better, which is in the end what we came here to do. When I say express ourselves much better, what I mean is express our gifts, our talents, our abilities, our nuances, our unique gifts that nobody else can express. And also to put ourselves in a space where we are the vehicle from which that expression is going to make the place that I was at better than how I found it, right? It's the way that we can be a beneficial presence. Presence is a very important word here because having all the physical bounty that I just mentioned, it's not necessarily going to give me the ability to be a beneficial presence. I won't be able to be a beneficial presence if I cannot connect with the emotions that I have inside me. If I cannot decipher what are these emotions telling me, and from there expand and grow. And so if I cannot do that, then I am an emotional dictator. And how do I know that I am an emotional dictator? Well, because if you are an emotional dictator, chances are is that you are relying on authority, control, raising your voice, rudeness, implying fear in the other person, setting ultimatums, or setting boundaries in a way where you are isolating yourself from the human need to interconnect creative power with other people. So you're thinking those are boundaries, but what you're doing is cutting off yourself from the world. It's kind of like a flower or a tree decides one day that I'm just going to cut off myself from the world, where from that point on, you're dying, right? We are all dying anyways, but you are consciously, intentionally, and volunteering to die, meaning going against evolution. Like you're saying, I'm going to go against evolution. So I cut myself from everything. Those are the tactics that you're using, not because you're a bad person. And we don't do it because intentionally we're a bad person. It's because we don't know how to use the currency of emotions. Because when we try to use the currency of emotions when we were a child and when we were in the womb, we weren't allowed to. And so we feel like we either overuse the currency of emotions or that we don't have access to a currency of emotions because, again, it wasn't modeled to us. And so given that circumstance, we don't see authority and pressure and fear as a bad thing in order to get our way or in order to raise our children or in order to be intense and strict with ourselves. We do it with ourselves. So whatever we are doing with other people, we're first doing it with ourselves. So we're being very strict with ourselves. And that is where all that idea of do it anyways, doesn't matter how you feel, go for it. Discipline regardless of anything. You have to go, 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 go. Don't care about emotions because emotions can slow you down, can stop you, right? Emotions is for people that are victims and don't want to move forward, don't want to grow, don't want to go forward. And that is not true. That is not true. That is just the other point, the other extreme of that spectrum. Those are people that also don't know how to process emotions, and they get overwhelmed with emotions, but they don't decide to ignore it, right? These are probably the anxiety attachment style. They decide to sort of navigate in these emotions, and they get stuck in trying to navigate them. But the other extreme of that spectrum is completely ignore it. So where do we want to be? We want to be in the middle. And how are we in the middle? We start managing emotions. And how do we start managing emotions? Well, we start first being open to the idea that we are human beings that feel a whole big spectrum of emotions, and that is healthy. That expressing my emotions is healthy, and that being with my emotions is healthy. And that, of course, requires a lot of other things that it's a muscle that we haven't practiced, right? A dictator haven't practiced the muscle of being compassionate with ourselves. We haven't been flexible. We don't know how to adapt to ourselves. We don't know how to process as you would process an child request. Okay, this is how you want to see it. Look at your emotions, right, as if it was a child's request or a child tantrum that it's happening in front of you. If you grab that child, put them in a room and say, whenever you're ready and you're not crying, call me, that is not a sustainable strategy. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. What's going to happen with that child? That child, it's going to become that same person, that same ogre, that same emotional dictator. Yeah. Or that child is not going to have any tools to process, or that child is not going to have any tools to process their emotions. And so first and foremost, emotions are here to guide us, to tell us, hey, there's something that is not working. So the first step is self-diagnosing. What emotion am I feeling? Chances are is that if this is new to you, you only know 2 or 3 emotions, right? Which are probably the basic ones, but you can't identify yourself or diagnose yourself with more than any of those 3 emotions. And so the first thing is identify what emotion is in place right now. The second thing is not invalidate it. We have to validate it. We have to acknowledge it. That means we have to be with it for a little bit. How do I be with an emotion? Well, you have to create space. You have to be patient. You have to talk to it. Just like how do you be with a child that is throwing a tantrum or that is really happy? If you get really bored right away, if you don't know what to do with yourself, that is a description of how are you with your own emotions. Yeah. And so you start practicing, how can I be with you? Because the truth is that those emotions are going to be with you regardless of how much you try to suppress them. They are going to then become and transform into an illness or into a whole nother damage with the bonding that you create and the intimacy that you create in your relationships with your children at work. And so that is going to explode into some sort of bad consequence. I'm not even talking about the incapability that you will have to create your true self and meaning and fulfillment in this world that's sustainable along the years, right? Your true potential. You can tell me, oh, I've been married for 30 years. I've been the owner of this business or working in this field for 40 years and it's been amazing. That's great. That's great. But we're not talking about the outer world success. What we're talking about is, have you been able to create deep intimacy in your relationship? Does your partner really know who you are and your fears? And are you able to build and construct through the years solutions together to the reality and transparency of who you both are? Those are completely different questions, right? Are you integrating your partner in your life? Are you able to stand? Chances are that you won't, because if you can't stand with your own emotions, right? Are you able to stand in the dark nights and in the shadows of your partner? What are the shadows of your partner? When they feel doubtful of themselves, when they fail, when they are afraid of what's coming, when they're paralyzed, when they're not doing what you thought they were going to do, when they're not enjoying the moment, when they're depressed, when they are invaded by a feeling of not worthiness. Those are the shadows of your partner that we all have. You can't really be there. Have you really achieved inner success? And is it worth it to have all the other recognitions if you don't have that inner success? Because if you don't have that inner success, that you're not in peace with yourself. You're not in peace with yourself. How do I know if I'm in peace with myself? Well, access your potential. You die tomorrow. Do you feel that you really reached your full potential? Is there anything that you feel you wish you could work towards that you want to do right now, that is related to your intimacy, your vulnerability, and living a life authentically? Are you really an authentic person? Being in our authenticity is what's going to bring peace. Because notice that if you are not in your authenticity at work, it doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter the level of achievement. It doesn't matter how many years. That is not the measurement leveler that we are going to use for fulfillment. It doesn't matter how many years. Same thing in a relationship, right? If you're not free, clear, authentic in your relationship, right? If that person that is with you and your children don't know the full spectrum of you and have not created strong bonds of intimacy with you, this is not a full-on flourishing relationship. And that means chances are that you're not in peace with yourself. What does that mean? You're living a double life, a life that is in a inner, you and your thoughts are very, very distant and separate from the person that is in front of you that's been there for 30 or 40 years. They don't know you and your thoughts. And you don't know their thoughts. And probably you're not interested in it either, because you can't handle it, because you can't handle your own. And so the question is, are you an emotional dictator or are you an emotional manager? And have you decided unconsciously to live your whole life trying to get away from emotions because you were never able to handle it, never were able to process them, and therefore you use all these controlling tools like a dictator would in order to keep yourself out of it, with the consequence of living a life out of integrity, out of authenticity, out of congruency. Yeah. So how would I then start becoming an emotional manager? If you can't, look for help. If you can, look for help. Start connecting with one person that can really reflect back to everything that you are, that can help you dig through everything that's being kept untouched and unseen and hidden inside you, that can look with you. And it's okay if it's not your partner, but this needs to happen in order for you to recuperate the peace inside. And a lot of times we're so disconnected from this real peace that we don't even know how that feels. And we think that the life that we have right now, that is just lived in a surface level, where everything is in order, right? I take vacation here, my kids are grown, or I do this, or I'm okay being, everything seems to be in order. But the question is, are you authentically living your life? Is this truly, when you look back, let's say you transition tomorrow, when you look back, is this truly a reflection of who you really are? That sometimes is such a hard question, right? So I hope this video was helpful. I hope this video was inspiring. I hope this video was something that keeps you alert to ask yourself that question. And how can you get more in touch with the intimacy that it's available for you with and in yourself? Take care. See you in the next video.